If you're about to jump into where wins meet, then good news, because I'm going to simplify and break down all the key mechanics, tips, tricks, useful information I wish I had known in day one, so you don't get overwhelmed and can just get stuck into enjoying the game. No spoilers, of course, and cheers to Episode Studios for sponsoring this video. And let's start with the most important info first, and that is game length, as it took me roughly around 25 hours just to finish the current main story, and I've already sunk in another 40 plus hours into the side content, and I'm still, in a good way, nowhere near done. So realistically, if you're going for that 100%, you're easily looking at around 80 to 100 hours here, even with more content due to arrive in 2026. Now, structure-wise, the game is currently split into three chapters, well, two chapters, but three if you're including this 15 to 25 minute snappy prologue, and then that is then followed by chapter 1 that includes 6 main missions, which took me around 12 or so hours, with chapter 2 adding an additional 5 missions for roughly another 10 to 12 hours of game time, give or take. Now, the good news is you can absolutely play this as a pure single player RPG, meaning you can ignore the co-op and multiplayer completely if you don't want to, as they kind of like stack or sit on top of each other as optional features, if you will. Now, just so you know, if you do ever want to replay the storyline or start a new character down the line, there is some very important information that you need to know first. Firstly, it is worth taking your time when creating a character. I don't say that lightly, because you can go ahead and pick a preset you like, or even use the AI face upload feature to get something vaguely close to looking like you. I'm not so sure. Give it a go. But I say this because if you get halfway through the game and you decide that you've kind of had enough of running around as SpongeBob SquarePants, then you'll need a water lady script from the Zhanko treasure shop to kind of fix your face, essentially, which is going to cost you 200 Echo Jades. And even though you've got 6 character presets to change your appearance, you can't delete your character right now if you want to start again, so do bear that in mind. On top of that, even though the game isn't pay to win, which is a good thing, your character progress, the battle pass, all the cosmetics that you earn are character bound. That includes everything you buy in the shop, by the way, so whatever you unlock is going to just stay on your one character, essentially. Now, the other hard lock here is your aspiration talents you choose during this character creation screen, as you can't change them later on in the game. So you've got the drunken precision talent here, which helps you win the pitch pop minigame, which rewards you with various character titles. And then you've also got the rhetoric edge, which boosts your gift of the gab skill, which allows you to haggle with NPCs around the world and get discounts or extra rewards during quests, essentially. So I would strongly recommend that you go with the rhetoric edge talent, which you will see why it will benefit you later on in this video. Now, once you're happy with your MJ, with your Michael Jackson look here, you can then drop into the world. But there is a lot of things thrown at you quite quickly on, especially in the UI. So let's kind of simplify that now as well. Firstly, what I'd recommend is jumping straight into settings and changing the function wheel from 8 slots down to 4. And in my opinion, this makes the initial learning curve a little bit more manageable, certainly until you kind of get used to the game anyway, and then you can bump it back up to 8. So I would also recommend setting the first slot of this 4 slot function wheel to quest, so you can instantly track the main and side story content, and then also put the second slot to bag, so you can equip your new gear the moment that it drops into your inventory, instead of initially getting lost and going down a rabbit hole in this developer gear menu right here. I'd then also add settings in, so you can quickly tweak the game as much as you wish, as well as the guide adding in for our 4th slot, which opens the tutorial page and the in-game AI helper, which is pretty new for these kind of games, and I'm fairly impressed with, actually, because it works like a built-in chat GPT, essentially. So it will give you fairly decent answers if you keep it simple. It certainly helps you with your quick-fire questions, and you can even use the microphone through your controller if you actually feel comfortable in doing so. Now, next in the settings menu, I'd also switch the damage numbers to simple, and this reduces the number spam on your screen when you're in combat. And I'd also consider muting the global chat and hiding player signposts if you want this to feel like a pure single player RPG. Otherwise, you're just going to have a lot of dialogue popping up during your quests. But before you sprint off into the open world, there are a few world restrictions that you really do need to know about, so you don't waste your own time. Firstly, the game is split up into 2 massive regions. Excuse the pronunciation here, but you've got Qinghe, which is the starting region that contains the full Chapter 1 storyline, and then you've got Kaifeng, which contains the Chapter 2 storyline. But crucially, you just can't travel there straight off the bat until you finish Chapter 1 in Qinghe. So don't waste your time trying to see if you can get across this river. I have tried, and the game will just teleport you back to Qinghe until you've then picked up the boat quest to then get you across and unlock that region. In fact, I'd actually recommend you just take your time in Qingha anyway, because there is genuinely so much to do in this game, and you could kind of treat this region as its own game entirely, if that makes sense. But when you do unlock Kaifeng, the Roaring Sands area to the north has recently been unlocked, whereas it's been off limits since launch, so you can get even more story content now, so you are in absolutely no rush here. That said, as soon as you do finish the prologue, I decided to run around Qingha and I unlocked the entire map. It doesn't take 10 hours to do, which is good news, and it gives you massive benefits right from the start if you do this. So let's go through exactly how you do that right now. So once you land in the open world, go straight to this campfire icon on your map, and whilst you're on your way, if you see someone, an NPC riding a horse, make sure you kindly steal it off them, because you now have a mount for the rest of the game. So congratulations. Now, this dude, when you get to the campfire, is a wayfarer who will try and charge you an Echo Jade to unlock his regional map that he's plotted. But if you pick the rhetoric edge talent earlier on in the character creation menu, you will have the option to haggle him. So you can do that twice, and then he's going to hand over his map for free. He will also give you a Wayfarer password, which you can use at other Wayfarer NPCs around the game. So I would then recommend that you take your brand spanking new horse that you've legally purchased, and you ride to each campfire icon here in Qingha, and then you speak to each Wayfarer in turn to then unfog the whole first region of the map. Now, after you've done that, I'd also suggest that you then unlock all the boundary stones, which are these fast travel points in game, because not only do they give you a lot of experience and help you level up, but they also save you a lot of time if you just want to focus on the storyline, as a lot of the quest givers are actually usually right next to them. Now, I'd also recommend you go into settings, then you go into the game menu, and you switch the map option to detailed, and this will allow you to see every activity available in the region when you zoom in as close as you can get into the map, which is a very good thing if you like to know where everything is in these kind of games. And that brings us actually quite nicely onto these icons, because there's a lot of them, but what are the most important ones that you should know straight out of the gate? Okay, let's go ahead and open up our new 4-slot wheel. We're going to hop into the journal menu, and you will see 4 tabs here. The first is the main story, which is, of course, your core campaign missions, and they are represented by the gold icons on the map. Next, we have the lost chapters, which are represented by the blue icons, and they are major side stories they're usually multi-step quests with dungeons and boss fights that they do pay out solid gear and unique abilities to make it worth your while. We've then got the encounters and the exploration quests here. They share the same green colored icons, with encounters being short immersive world quests that you bump into while you're out exploring. Speaking of which, exploration quests directly raise your exploration level in that specific region, and I will go through that in a second because it does sound a little bit confusing. And separate from these quest categories, you also have a variety of red icons, which are either outposts that you can clear or world bosses that you need to defeat in a team or by yourself if you're pretty good. You also have dungeons that you can repeat, which you'll experience firsthand through the storyline quite early on as well. So now you've got a bit of an idea of what's what it is in this game, instead of overcommitting to like something like a lost chapter quest, which then takes a few hours to complete, which is not ideal when you've got work in the morning. But what about this exploration XP system I was just talking about? Does it bring you any benefits at all? Well, the answer is yes, because in the early game, you need to know that there are 2 leveling tracks that are critical for you to understand. The first is the character level, and the second is this exploration level, and they level up differently to one another. Now, each main region, so Qingha in Chapter 1 and Kaifeng in Chapter 2, has its own exploration rank, essentially. So if we go ahead and open up our map, and then what we're going to do if we're on console is we're going to click down here onto the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, and then once we're inside that menu, you will then see this character's exploration level, and that can go all the way up to level 6 for that specific region. Now, you can gain this exploration XP by completing those green exploration quests that we discussed earlier, as well as completing general open world activities like unlocking those boundary stones that we did earlier as well, for example. But the main target here is that you want to get to an exploration level of 4, as that's where you unlock the key lightness skill, and this allows you to sprint across water and wall run, essentially, which is a lot faster than your horse and is a lot of fun in this game. But what about your character experience, and what about these things called breakthroughs? How does that then work in this game? Well, okay, we're going to go ahead and open up another menu here. We're going to press the start menu, and then we're going to tab across to the center of the screen here, as this denotes that you're in a solo mode game, by the way, this icon. Now, once you're inside this menu, you'll notice that there's this thing here called Breakthrough Trials. Now, these are small combat events for you to complete where waves of enemies come at you and progressively get harder. The catch being that they become available every 10 levels or so, which is, if you choose not to complete them, that will then put a hard lock on your current character, meaning you're just not going to level up any further until you complete one of these Breakthrough Trials. Now, that does mean that the XP that you do earn while being held at this level is still occurring in the background. You just can't see it, and that means it's good news when you do eventually beat the Breakthrough Trial, because all of that XP that you have earned is then instantly applied to your characters. So you may actually find yourself gaining several levels in one go and nearly ready to start the next breakthrough event after this happens. Now, one of the main reasons why I'd say not to ignore breakthroughs is because when you do complete one, the game will then reward you with higher tiered gear and loot in quests, chests, actually pretty much everything across the map. So it's really important that you get this done as soon as possible, as soon as it becomes available to you. But whilst we're on the topic of combat, actually, let's go through a few things I wish I had known before playing this game. So you guessed it, we're going to open up the develop menu here and head into this martial arts section where you'll see each weapon has this class tag on it. If I kind of actually just scroll down here for you. Now, how this works is when you equip a weapon, it allows you to perform specific class abilities that are specific to that weapon, which I'm going to highlight here for you as well. So for example, if you equip the Nameless Sword here, which is a close quarters melee DPS weapon, as you can also see here, I'll zoom in here for you. And by equipping this, I can use its special martial art ability called Daunting Strike, and this allows me to get back into the fight quickly, which is what this class is all about, of course. But if you change weapons in combat, let's say to the Panacea Fan, which is a healer class, which I'll highlight here for you as well, you'll now be able to perform healing abilities such as this Cloudburst healing spell to top up my health in combat. Now, once you're happy, you can then switch back and forth to your sword or weapons to then continue fighting, and I just use this as an example to demonstrate what I recommend is a balanced early game setup where you can't really go too far wrong, as having a healer second offhand weapon with those martial art abilities means you do feel more confident with the game if you know that you can get yourself out of a tight spot and heal yourself up quickly. And it also gets you into the habit of switching back and forth between these weapons, because it's really advantageous for you later on in the game when you come up against some really challenging enemies. It's also worth trying actually all these other classes such as a tank and ranged DPS with these weapons just to see what you prefer, but at least you get the rotation idea here of what this game's all about. But speaking of which, what about these mystic skills? What are they all about? Well, these mystic skills have real world utility as well as combat benefits, which if you're playing on your controller, you can activate by holding your RT or R2 button, and it's a associated button with it actually to trigger it. So for example, one of the first mystic skills that you can unlock is Tai Chi, which you learn by throwing a large bear into some rocks, essentially, as you do, to then uncover some loot, which is located here on your map. Now, not only can you do this for the rest of the game, including using it to pull fish out of the water for cooking ingredients, but you can also use it against enemies in combat to then give yourself a few seconds reprieve, so you can then cast your healing spell and then get back into the fight with the Daunting Strike from your sword. So hopefully, again, you can see how this is all coming together now, where a lot of these mystic skills can be unlocked through the blue and green icon quest that we spoke about earlier in the video. And by clicking on the How to Learn button in the Mystic Arts menu here, that will then show you the location of a specific mystic skill that you're interested in directly on your map. A good example is the Veil of Stillness here, which allows you to turn invisible or go stealth at level 8, which means that you can then speedrun dungeons and grab loot very easily. So make sure you don't skip that, and actually leave a like if that does end up helping you out. Now, if you've watched this far and you still haven't downloaded this awesome free game, you can do so from the PS5 store page, Steam on PC, and the official Where Wins Meets website. It's also available to download on your mobile as well, and you can find a link to all of those platforms down below. I've also made another helpful video for you just like this one with even more tips and tricks in it, so give that a click on your screen right now. If it's not up yet, it will be very soon, so subscribe if you haven't already so you can get even more out of this awesome game, and hopefully I will see you there in just a second. My thanks to Nika for helping me make this video. If you are celebrating Christmas, Merry Christmas to you and your family. I would say coffee's on me, but I think this time a more festive way to sign off is eggnog is on me.